Good morning, guys. Good morning. What we want to do now is simply what we want to do is to just paint the shoe, right? Uh, the shoe we have before us here is similar to what we have on the screen, I guess, slightly or very similar. So um before you do anything, of course, you know you have to remove the lace, abi? And if you are here to clean the shoe, that is, if there's still gum or whatever on the shoe, you have to clean it also, because if there's still gum on the shoe or any part of the shoe whatsoever, you can be sure that that part will not absorb dye properly, right? So having done that, i I believe you're already acquainted with, especially most of you that were here on which days, you're already acquainted with some of the procedure. So I will not bore you with any what's it called, procedural lecture. So we'll just go ahead and paint the shoe, and let's see what the outcome is going to be like. Today we are using this dye. This is Fairbanks dark brown as it is written on it, but there are so many other dyes out there that you can use, right? Yeah, a lot. There are quite a lot, but this is what I'm using for this very beautiful occasion. To start with, I'm going to be cleaning the shoe with uh, in this case a nail dissolver, right? You all know what nail dissolver is, abi? This substance inside this bottle, and you can also use thinner. Thinner, yes. There's a When you go to furniture people, just tell them you want to buy thinner. I think it's used to make paint. What's okay? I have plenty. So, cleaning this shoe, we definitely remove some finish from the shoe. When I mean finish, I mean the surface coating of the shoe. So we just want to clean gently, and by cleaning gently, if there's still gum on the shoe, you are going to know, because that part is going to be singled out, right? If there's any form of impurity on it, you will know. And what you can easily also see is the color of the shoe will become slightly lighter. In some cases, if the pigment of the shoe is superficial, that is just on top of the shoe, not inside the leather, not inside the shoe, just on top of the leather. If the coating of the paint or whatever is on top or on the surface, good surface, you are going to remove, you'll be able to remove quite a lot. But if it is actually inside, there's really little you can remove. You can't remove so much. So you see, the cotton wool is not um, so much revealing brown. You already know the use of this process, and that's just to make the leather ready to absorb the dye. In some cases, you really might not need to do this, right? So it's not usually compulsory a step to do. So that's basically the first step. I'm going to do, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other leg. Now, if there's still silver pen on your shoe, this should also be able to remove it. But obviously, you should not, if you are not going to paint the shoe, you should not use it to, because you want to, you should not use it because you want to remove silver pen, because it will bleach the shoe. Abi, if you use it, I did not tell you to do that. So it is at your own risk. Uh, because you're a shoemaker, or because we are shoemakers here, it is very, very okay to reserve a piece of this leather, a piece of the same leather you used to make the shoe, just to test how the dye you want to use is going to behave on the leather, right? That will save you a lot of stress, uh, applying dye and trying to clean it again, right? So just reserve a little piece of the leather. It doesn't have to be the best part of the leather. Any part is fine. Just reserve for this purpose. You can keep using the cotton wool, most especially because the leather is not actually peeling off that much. Okay. So we expect a result as similar as possible to what we have here, right? And what you can easily see is there's a background on the shoe. Now, when I mean the background, I mean the color that is most prominent on the shoe, and that would be this color. It's looking like a golden water view. I don't know colors that much, right? But this is a kind of brown, I believe, right? And for our case, this is the kind of brown we are using. Then afterwards, this place has a very faintly dark, not as dark as black, right? And it seems to not be as dark as dark brown, right? Because this sole is actually dark brown, I believe. So this is, you can obviously still see this underneath here. So it's just like a light coating over this region, then a light coating underneath. That's more like all around the base. Then light shading here, light shading along the edge, right? Light shading around here, and more like the back also. You can see this part is relatively dark. I don't want to believe that's a shadow or something. this part is, it looks obviously dark, abi, and this part also. If you, this is going to be a very easy one to do, even if you are using airbrush. You know what airbrush is, abi? That where is it? Should be somewhere around there. So you can definitely use that to achieve this. All you have to do is to just spray here, spray a little bit here, spray all the way down, spray. But today we are using brush, like a real time brush, which is a something like this. So for the making of this shoe, this is the same piece of leather that was used. So let's set it aside so that you can see what the leather will behave like on this shoe. And I've been able to wipe off some part of the leather with this guy, just like we have done here, so that we'll be sure the result is almost the same, right? Right? Good. So this leather, this that we are using, uh sorry, I refuse to open it completely because I don't want it to pour away. Good job. So this is me trying to pick the dye from here. So I have dye inside this brush. This dye is dark brown. You can see it's written on it boldly. Dark brown, happy. So this brush has absorbed quite a number of a good quantity of the dye, right? So let's apply and let's see what we get. This is completely not dark, right? But the promise of the dye is, or the good part of the dye is, once you apply the first time, you should not get the color that was stipulated on it. You should get a mild version of it. Then when you come back again to apply, it should become darker when you apply again. So in essence, multiple coating will bring you to dark brown. Do we get now? So this is already trying to dry up because it's an alcohol based dye. It's an alcohol dye. So once you apply, it's going to, the alcohol content is going to leave, leaving the dye itself on it. So I'm going to apply again so you see the effect yet again. Then this one that has dried up, so this is the first coat, this is the second coat. um Let me pick the dye again and apply another coat. So this is another coat. What you should get literally is, because this one has only one coat, this one has two coats. When this one dry out, this should be darker than this, right? And you can continue on and on and on and on and on, right? Which makes it a perfect dye for us to be able to achieve something, because upon application you can still obviously see the color beneath, right? The color beneath. So that is what we are going to be doing. So let's quickly go to the shoe. Let's quickly go to the shoe, and a good practice is, once you put the dye in the brush, try and wipe it off so that you don't have so much dye. The more you have, I don't want to say the more problematic, but uh, it's like a sponge. You know sponge, abi? When you dip it inside water, it will soak water. Anywhere you drop it, it will drop everything there. So I've picked the dye inside the brush, right? It's a good practice to just kind of wipe it off a little bit before you go directly to your shoe. That will save you quite the stress of having to deal with so much dye. So first apply, and you want to apply to the application to be as much as where you want it to get to actually. So it will interest you to know that there's still dye in the brush, right? The brush will not release the dye uh, instantly, right? So there will still be dye in the brush to do whatever you want to do, right? So while this part is drying out, you can easily or quickly go and apply over here. I'm just trying to do simultaneously so that we get almost the same results. But that does not mean you cannot do one before the other. But the side effect of doing one before the other is when you are doing the other leg, the first leg will have dried out. And for the fact that the first leg has dried out, the color you are seeing when you're applying is different from, is usually slightly different from the actual color that you see when it is still fresh or when it is dry, when it is fresh. So you get, when I was applying this most likely not what you were seeing. It's quite a little bit, I think it's darker now or some, or maybe lighter. I can't really tell now, but usually a little bit different, right? So so next is to apply again. This time you are not applying everywhere because the next part that is going to touch now, that place is going to become darker, and you want it to be in such a way that this region here should be darker than the top, right? So I'm putting another dye right at that region, and for the fact that I really want this part to be dark also, I think it's so dark in the picture, I'll apply again over here. Once you start doing it by yourself, you will understand exactly how this works. Okay, so the toe again, so the toe is already receiving quite a good number of the dye. Now I'm extending the dye forward, knowing fully well that um, the new part the brush is touching is not going to be as dark as this toe part, right? It's just simple because this part already has more dye to it. So I can also now continue to shade this region. You see, the dye in the brush is not that so much to make it very make it as dark as this, right? So that is so another die here, another one here. So you keep doing it when you feel that the dye in the brush is almost exhausted. That's when you do the under part. So uh, for your information, there's going to be some color here, right? On this part of the probe, on this probe part. Now the color is already almost fainting, so I can proceed to do this part. It's not dark again, abi? Because the color is not that much again. Then I can proceed forward. Just leveraging on the fact that the dye is not that much on the what have you again on the brush. Good, thank you. The brush. Now you can come forward knowing fully well that this part is going to be obviously less darker than this. Then you can do the side also, right? I think it's a very simple approach that everybody should be able to do. Is it not? Is it or is it not? So, uh, so I want to paint this well enough. If for any reason you want any part to be very dark, you can introduce another shade of brown, or you can simply just add a little bit of black color to a portion of what you want to use so that you can quickly achieve a dark color. Um, I don't think any part is exhibiting black. They are just fairly dark, right? They are not. I think they are just as dark as this, or a little bit more. By the time you go once or twice, three times, the color is going to come out, and you see clearly that the color that is showing while we are painting it is a little bit lighter than the color that is actually coming out after it dries up. So that's why it is also useful to you to is also useful for you to do them together so that you will not be looking at this one when it is dark and painting this one when it is not dark. By the time you are done, this one will be darker than this because you'll be trying to apply so much dye here when in fact the dye is already enough, right? So this also this also should get this. It's not a so much a hard procedure, although it's not that simple. But for your information, just know that airbrush can do this for you conveniently. So once you see the brush is becoming close to white, you can be sure there's no reasonable amount of dye that can be useful again to you, right? See, the more I go back to coat it, the more it becomes uh, more obvious that there's actually dye dropping there. Abi?